It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org from Louisville Public Media.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Welcome to another edition of Kyle Meredith with. It's the interview series presented by WFPK at WFPK.org, Consequence, and the Consequence Podcast Network. Thank you so much for making your way here, checking out this series and this episode. Please do hit the subscribe button. I put out 3 brand new interviews every single week, so it's a great way to keep up with all of your favorite artists, discover some new ones, and know what's happening in the music world. Of course, you can do so at iTunes and Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Podchaser, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you get your podcasts from. I'm Kyle Meredith. Today, my guest, Jungle, going to be talking with Tom McFarland about the brand new record, Loving in Stereo. It's the British electronic duo's 3rd studio album. And Tom and I are going to talk about how writing to a choir helps their songs become more inviting and encourages community, as he says, their collaboration with hip-hop artist Baz, and being influenced by the Strokes and Arcade Fire in the younger days, how that's led to one of my favorite tracks on this album. Also notable for their music videos full of amazing choreography. Tom's also going to tell us about how their visuals fit within their music, as well as why they choose to keep their faces out of their marketing, and remixing Brittany Howard's History Repeats for her Jamie Reimagined album. All that's in here and more. Let's do this, discussing Loving in Stereo. It's Kyle Meredith with Jungle.
Hey, Kyle.
Loving in Stereo. You did it again and again and again, and you don't know that artists are going to be able to keep doing this, but here you are again. You put out one of the most feel-good records of the year, and there's so much happening. Last time, I know with the last record and last time we talked, there was sort of I don't know what you'd say, an impetus for that album, because you had moved to California and that sort of set in motion a lot of those songs. Do you have that singular moment that you can account for this time around?
I'm not necessarily sure, because we were only in LA for 3 or 4 months on a holiday essentially last time. So we basically just went and had a look at LA and realized it wasn't really for us essentially, but wrote some songs out there, which was great. Guess the impetus for this was let's try and do the opposite of what we did on the second record in a way. The second record felt quite slow to us, obviously much more emotional. I think we were obviously trying to connect with our individual stories at that moment in time as songwriters, because that's what felt most real and truthful to us. But now we're just we want the energy. We want to be able to step on stage with a whole new load of songs in our back pocket that are going to just get people moving and get people having a good time. So I guess that was potentially an impetus. You know what I mean? That sort of urge to give the fans something a little bit more spicy on a regular basis at the shows.
Well, I will say that every track makes me want to go outside. As I was listening to it, that's the thought that I kept arriving back to. There's a lot of music that makes me want to move, feel good, all that, but these specifically make me want to go outside.
But that's good. I think sunshine, that sense of escapism. Obviously, we're from the UK, right? The sun doesn't shine that much here. In fact, it's absolutely pouring it down with rain right now as we speak. And yeah, maybe that whole playing GTA 5 when we were making the first record, getting stoned, kind of falling into this world of sunshine was something that felt quite natural and inherent to us as creative people, because it's just something that we don't know. And when you do get out to the West Coast, or you're on a beach in Mexico and you're sort of there at sunset, you're this is what I was sort of trying to sonically imagine. Do you know what I mean? And when you get to go and experience it, it's pretty neat.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it's a heavy downpour right now here in Louisville too. So it's we're similar boats, I guess. But there is a coherentness throughout this entire record. So I don't know if you can again pinpoint this, but is there a musical mood that you landed on? Because I've talked about you guys wanting to kind of go back to your roots, but this doesn't sound exactly like the first record. It definitely doesn't sound like the second record, but there is sort of a through line sound that's going through this. What is that exactly?
I think essentially what we've managed to do on this record is finally realize all the ideas we've got in our head in HD, because the first record and the second record had technical limitations that was our brains. Do you know what I mean? We're now we've been making records for nearly 10 years now as Jungle, and we just feel like we're so much more capable of like realizing our ideas. Do you know what I mean? So we've gone back to like the essence of like what we put into the songs in terms of what Jungle is and what Jungle should be, which is just like straight up fun and good times and positive energy and positive messages that hopefully give people a chance to step out of the malaise of the system. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, I guess like we're now just on a level in terms of our production where we can like realize it in full color, you know.
I'll say that like Beck is one of my all-time favorite artists. This doesn't sound like a Beck record, but it sounds like you all are kind of, I don't know, drinking from the same well, if that makes sense. Like there's this sort of 70s soul Afro-centric thing happening. I don't know if you can speak to that, but that seems really prevalent within a lot of like the bass work on here is so good all over this record.
Yeah. I think we actually kind of struck a little new groove. You know, tracks like Talk About It and Fire, What You Know About Me, they've all got this sort of syncopated energy that we've never really explored before. Because I think, you know, when you're sitting there living in your sort of like creative fear zone and you come across stuff like that in the past and you're lacking a bit of confidence as we used to, you'd be like, oh, it's a bit like rocky or punky, or like people are going to think it's too this or too that or too Motown, or like people are going to judge us. And actually it's like, that's a sick rhythm, so like why not put it on a record? Do you know what I mean? Like we're just in that place now where it's like there's no consequences to our actions in terms of our creativity. Like we don't sit there fearing other people's opinions. And I think when you're younger, you know, we started this as kids and we're definitely grown men now, and you just like, life's too short to worry about what people think about you, man. And if you love the art that you're making in that moment, that's the most special part of this whole process.
I will say, you know, further on down that sound too, the choir, it really adds to it as well. Does that change how you write to a song when you're writing to a choir as opposed to like a singular voice?
I think so. Well, yes and no, because like we've always tried to get that sort of group vocal sound, but obviously when it was like the first record, it was just like me and Josh layering our voices loads of times and like trying to sing really high so that we could like hit those notes. Like, you know what I mean? In our heads, we were trying to make like a Justin Timberlake record on that first album. And now like we've just got the balls to like go out there and offer it to people and see how they express themselves on the tracks. And yeah, for sure, it gives the message, it gives like the mantras and the messages that we write and that we want to like give to our audience. I think it gives them more weight essentially, because like a message coming from a singular place can be divisive and sort of polarizing, whereas I think when there's a big group of people behind it, it becomes a much more welcoming proposition. Do you know what I mean? I think people feel like they can be part of it now, rather than potentially, you know, that second record got very self-indulgent in places, and that was just where we were creatively. Do you know what I mean? I'm not gonna like apologize for that, but you know, we were writing love songs and breakup songs because that's what we were going through. And when we were making this record, we were just like happy and engaged and confident. And I think now that the pandemic struck and kind of coming out of the other end of that, it's now taken on this whole new relevance of like hope and like looking forward. And I think it's going to resonate with more people as a result of that.
I never thought about that. Just the fact that even having more voices makes it more welcoming. And it's true. Like,
well, it's like that community. I just think you feel like you're part of the community rather than sitting there listening to like two guys from London moan about something.
Yeah. Oh, so there are singular vocal moments on here, and one of them is a collaboration. Is it bass, bass? How do you say his name?
He says bars, but obviously we just say bass.
Gotcha.
Baz.
Like that's a new feel for you guys as well. I mean, we're talking like just basically a straight on hip hop track is what's happening here. What went into that? And I don't know, did it feel different to you as you were making it?
I mean, hip hop's always been a huge part of what we do and what we love, what we listen to. I don't think you could ask really any like modern electronic producer if they haven't been influenced by Dilla. Do you know what I mean? Like he was just all over the place when we were growing up. The British hip hop scene was huge in the early 2000s, mid 2000s as well. And so that's always been an ambition for us. You know what I mean? I think like in our heads, we're hip hop producers. We've never produced hip hop before. And we just met him backstage at a festival in Coney Island. And he was in London at the end of 2019 when we were doing the big session up in North London, putting all the strings and the brass and the choirs on the tracks. And he was like, yo, do you want a drink? I'm in London. We were like, well, do you want to come to the studio, man, and like cut a track? And he was like, yeah, sick. And it sort of happened in an evening. And I think those moments are really special. You can't really remember those moments other than remembering that it was fun and it felt easy and it was freeing and very liberating. And yeah, and I think like ultimately, however the idea comes out, if it's a good idea, it's going to go on the record. You know, like I think, yeah, the fans will hear that there's something new and something different, but I think there are little splashes of that across this record, and that just shows that we're really confident and that we believe in ourselves, and we believe that our fans will get on board whichever direction we want to take them in.
Well, also compliments that it doesn't feel out of place on the album at all. Like, and I know, you know, a lot of things go into that. One, it still sounds like you all too, you know, the track listing and the placement and all that, but it never, it doesn't feel like I'm in an intermission or anything. And that goes the same way further on down with Goodbye My Love, because here you get another singular moment with a kind of a jazzy quality that goes along with that one. I mean, I'll just kind of generically give you the same platform here, but that still sounds like it was a fun one to make as well.
Yeah, and again, another really short, quick process. And I think probably like one of the better like songs on the record, you know what I mean? Like she's a great writer, Priya, an amazing voice. She's Sri Lankan and emigrated to Switzerland, I guess, when she was a kid. And so that blend of like Western and Eastern melodies and scales and tones, like, you know, she grew up in a completely different like scale to what we think of as like music. Do you know what I mean? So like when you blend that with what you're doing, it naturally has this flavor that's just so rare and so unique. And yeah, that track came together super quickly at the end of the day when actually we'd been in the studio trying to make something for her record. And at the end of the day, we were just like, let's try something else. Just we've got another hour and a half studio time. Let's see what we can do. And again, yeah, just one of those magic moments where you're working with someone who's so inspiring and is obviously inspired by what you're doing as well on record. It's just a match made in heaven.
And you said this one's mine. This one's not yours. This one's ours.
Yeah. Early on, very early on in that process.
While we're talking about songs too, Truth, an absolute classic. Just like as we're talking about, you know, electronic music and dance music and hip hop music, like this is a rock song. Like this is it reminds me a little bit of Soundtrack of Our Lives, if you remember them at all. It's got that feel to it. I don't know why, but it like this is one I just want to hear a million times this year and not be tired of it. So
well, that's good. That's a good sign. Yeah, Truth's really cool, man. Like, you know, some of it was written quite a long time ago, like 2018, when we were out in LA playing a show, and we went to our friend Riley's place, and he's got like a little studio in his garage in Laurel Canyon. And we were just like, we had a half day, so we jumped in there, and that's sort of where I think like the verse and the bridge came. And then Jay put the chorus down at some point in last year and played it to me, and I was like, sweet, that works. And yeah, man, like we grew up listening to the Strokes. They're a huge influence. You know, Arcade Fire with that track Month of May, halfway through Suburbs, really like picks your attention up. And I think like, again, it's just one of those songs that was there and we couldn't ignore it. And yeah, we sort of half thought that it was going to piss some people off, which I think is quite a good thing. Do you know what I mean? Like Bowie always said, like, it's good to sort of feel a bit uncomfortable with what you're creating and what you're releasing, because that means you're really pushing your own limits and your own boundaries, right? And when you're creating something, that's a really cool place to be, but it's also scary. And I think like kudos to both of us for having the balls to sort of go, you know what, like we can do something like this. Like jungle doesn't have to be defined by like a funky bass line or like something that feels like, you know, soul. There are a lot of influences in our lives and in our musical lives, and it's nice to be able to like express those in our own way.
I love that you brought up Bowie, by the way, because usually when I do this, I've got two big Bowie posters behind me, and I think because of that, almost every artist feels like they need to bring Bowie into the conversation. He's one of my all-time favorite. I'm not even around these posters today, and here he is back in the interview. So
there you go.
It's fun. The visuals are also such a huge part of what you all do. The music videos are mesmerizing. I've probably texted Keep Moving to a dozen of my friends. Are you able to verbalize exactly how they tie into the album? I mean, do you see them as one complete piece, or are they two parts of a bigger picture?
That's a really hard question. I think like ultimately what the visuals give you is another perspective on your song, and you allow those performers, those dancers, those roller skaters, those break dancers, whoever it may be, you ask them to like take your art and express it in their own way, and that's like, it takes on a new life for sure. So they probably are separate things because there are like different stories being told, right? There's a story that has been interpreted, and there's a story that's been like, it's like A source and B source material, right? But I love that. I love that I can sit there and watch my own music videos and A, not see myself like miming or being an idiot, and B, like I learn more about my art and my music, and that's priceless, man. I don't think you can really get anything more like exciting and fulfilling than like seeing that happen on a screen.
It adds that extra layer. I know this is nothing new. I mean, you're 3 albums into this, but not having your faces as the face of the group, like mystery is gone these days for the most part. But I can say that Jungle still has a lot of mystery in it. And I think I love that part of it too. I don't know. Was that an actual conscious decision that you all made early on?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. Like, I think growing up, obviously we grew up in an age like a very pre-digital age, right? So we still had like dial-up internet, and the only thing I could find out about artists was by reading like magazines like NME, Rolling Stone, Q, Word. And there was a sense like I didn't know everything about all the members of Kings of Leon. They just looked like some cool dudes from Tennessee who like wore like really cool t-shirts, and like artists like Bowie, like you didn't know what he had for breakfast because he didn't have Instagram. And I think that adds such a huge layer to the complexity of what they do as artists. And that's lost now. Do you know what I mean? Like James Blake's a really good example. Like, absolutely love James Blake. But then as he becomes a little bit more like of a celeb, do you know what I mean? You lose that sense of like, there's no more questions to be answered. And I think like what we love is allowing people the space to imagine and allowing the people the space to ask questions and not necessarily have them answered, because that's like a really exciting feeling. Do you know what I mean? It's that anxiety, it's that anticipation, it's that adrenaline that you get from not knowing something. And we've sort of as a society forgotten that a little bit. Like we get everything we want right now. If you've got enough money, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be like millions, but like if you live in society today and you've got enough money, you can get anything you want right now, pretty much, right? And that's sad, I think.
There's also a nice tradition of it. And I know I'm flipping around on exactly how we're talking about this too, but even within the heritage, you know, of Jungle, and I'm talking about, you know, like electronic duos. To this day, I probably don't know what the Chemical Brothers look like. And it doesn't, I mean, I love the music, you know, it's like that. It doesn't stop me from loving it, and maybe I even love
true.
it more.
Like who is Air? Do you know what I mean? Who are
right?
Who
exactly.
are 07? Like you don't know. And you know, Josh and I obviously we really appreciate that you got to promote records, you got to play live. There does have to come a point where like your face becomes part of it. But as you get older, you kind of stop caring less about it. And like, I think if we just maintain that, like I think for us, like the most important thing is the art, and if we can just like push that ahead of our own personal stories and our own egos, like that'll be a really cool thing to be able to achieve.
But that is getting mixed into the live show. It's not just your face. Did I read it right that you are going to start or you're incorporating more of what we see in the music videos into the live show plans?
There are definitely going to be some like visual elements on stage this time that we haven't used before. I think it's a little bit far-fetched to presume that we're going to suddenly like come out with like a Spice Girls style like 20 dancers stage show. As much as I'd love to, do you know what I mean? Like the budgets don't stretch that far, unfortunately. But I think, you know, we'll pick key shows, maybe some festival slots that are really special to potentially incorporate some dance, because like it's amazing. And actually we've had experiences of it before, like Glastonbury 2014, we got B-Girl Terror, who's the girl that breakdanced on the Platoon video. She came out and it was like just a real moment and very special for our fans, I guess. And for you as well, there's like an adrenaline rush. So yeah, I think like stuff like that will happen more and more as we get more confident and we sort of like realize that we can have a little bit more fun with it. But yeah, there's definitely some new visual elements coming in.
My new wish list is for Jungle to produce a Spice Girls album. I think that just landed.
Maybe we'll do the musical. Do you know what I mean?
It's good for everybody right there. I want to wrap up. Speaking of collaborations too, you all are also part of Brittany Howard's Jamie Reimagined record. Remixing was it a History, right?
History Repeats.
History Repeats,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
which was such an amazing song at the beginning. How did you approach that? Did you have a vision of what you wanted to do with it? Because I do love what you guys did with that one.
Not really. We had a new synth. We just bought our Moog 1, which is like the most recent all singing, all dancing creation from Moog, who are obviously based in Asheville. And yeah, like we just got that synth. We got sent the stems, and it just had that like I just felt that in the guitar. You got like the strum at the beginning, which is obviously part of the original track, and I was like, what if we try and like replicate the sound of a strumming guitar with like loads of synths? So that's essentially what we did. And then you just build the vocal in around it. And when you're working with such amazing source material, I mean, it was really interesting because we were working on that track, while all the Black Lives Matter stuff was going on. And it does make you think, gives you another perspective, listening to, other people's stories and other people's, the truth of other people's lives in today's society. And it was a very humbling experience, I think, in general.
By the way, the reimagined trend that's happening right now, it seems like a lot of artists are doing that. It's such a cool way to listen to a record. And I don't know, to be a part of, like, there's one thing just to remix a track, but I think when you're talking about actually being part of a reimagined album, like that's got to be a little bit different. Yeah, for sure. It's like, it's not as singular, right? It's part of a bigger picture. And I think that it was obviously an honor to be, put on an album with, amazing artists and producers as well. Like, that was really special when we saw the final track listing. And yeah, I think like it's just nice that we can all come together in our own ways and like contribute to uplifting Brittany's art, because it is amazing. And from Alabama Shakes onwards, she's had an amazing career as a songwriter, and long may it continue. Well, I will say the same thing for you and Jungle and this new record, Loving in Stereo, man. Seriously, I'm such a big fan of what you all do. Thank you so much for continuing to do it. And dude, Tom, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about it today. It's been fun catching up again. Thanks very much, man. Take care of yourself. Now, Tom and I spoke just back in 2019. Actually, he was getting a tattoo while on the phone with me while the interview was going on. This is back when we were talking about their second album, Forever, and its ties to the romance and dark side of America that we kind of hint at in this previous interview. So let's do this part 2, Kyle Meredith with Jungle.
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
You've caught me in quite a weird situation. I'm in the middle of getting a tattoo at the moment.
Oh,
which is quite exciting.
That's fun. I mean, that's sort of fun for me. I don't know if that's going to be fun for you, but I suppose we'll see. Wait. Can I ask a few things about that? Like, what are you getting and where?
I'm getting my first ever jungle tattoo, actually, as we speak.
Oh, so like of the logo?
No. Well, it's just written. It's like just in a kind of like prison style, just on my forearm. So yeah, should be exciting.
All right.
I'm in Toronto right now, so.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, and this should be interesting either way around it. So it's good to talk to you.
Maybe it will be a nice distraction.
Well, hey man, congratulations on the Forever record. It's really been a really fun listen, and all the success that's came along with this. This is great for you all.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. It's taken us by surprise, really, which has been good.
I do, so we'll back up a little bit, because before this record, and really, after that first one, I mean, it all seemed to happen so fast during the first singles and albums. So with 4 years in between, I mean, was there a desire to take stock, to take back the reins? I mean, did it ever feel out of control for you all?
I think because you're like in the middle of it, you don't really have the perspective. It's just this kind of like constant, like what's happening next, what's happening tomorrow, something new's come in, something else is happening. You don't really ever get a chance to like take stock of it, I guess, in that sort of sense, if you know what I mean. But if you look back, if I was looking back on the journey up until kind of the end of the touring that first record, yeah, like if you look back on it now with that hindsight, it was a whirlwind and it was crazy. And I think all the things that happened to us were really wonderfully unexpected in that way. And so, like we took a little bit of time out at the end of that cycle just to kind of breathe a little bit and sort of go, wow, like what happened there? What went on? It was just pretty mad.
In that time, you just rush away from the music industry altogether. You try to live life, like regular life.
You try to. It's obviously it's quite difficult to readjust. But I guess ultimately, you got to have those experiences And I think that's what we kind of worked out was it was all very well coming straight back off the road and getting into the studio, but actually that gave you really nothing that gave you no experiences to kind of talk about, I guess. And so we just sort of went, okay, let's not do this for a little bit and gain that sort of emotional material that helps us make this second record.
As I read, two of the big parts of this record, one of those at least, is you moved to the U.S., and that ended up being sort of part of the writing. And if that's right, what drew you here? What made you want to come over here to live?
Well, I mean, Jay fell in love with a girl from LA, and so he moved over for the summer in, I guess, 2016. Lived with her. I came over and I was in the studio with him a couple of times. And LA is a very romantic place for an English creative person, I think. We're kind of shown so much of it in media, music, film, music videos, literature. Hollywood is a very romantic place for anyone who's creative. The sky is amazing. There are too many palm trees. It's like a bit of a joke. So I think you're naturally drawn there because of those things. And yeah, like America's it's just fascinating. And it's been an absolute privilege to be able to come and sorry, hang on. She's really getting going now. This is probably a new experience for you as well as it is for me.
Oh, this is a lot of fun. I mean, all I can do is imagine what's happening to you, right? I have no tattoos. I have 0 tattoos on my body. So honestly, I don't even have a place of reference.
This is only my second ever one.
Here's the closest I can get. Me trying to figure out what it feels like to have a tattoo is you or you and Jay thinking about what America is before you got here. It's just sort
exactly.
of
yeah.
Maybe I kind of get the drift. But it's what a time to move to America, because even with the romance of the West Coast and the actual weather that seems to constantly exist on that side of the country, it is political upheaval, both in the UK, but especially in here as well. Did that play into it at all for you all? Were you swept up into that side of things?
Obviously, we're very socially minded, socially conscious people. I think that just came from our upbringing in the UK and how diverse our culture is over there. So you think about it, you try not to let it bring you down. I mean, all the stuff that's going on with the UK and Europe at the moment is just it's not great, and you just got to kind of stay positive and keep making music, because at the end of the day there are loads of people that still want to kind of have that connection with you, and you've got to sort of forget politics a little bit, I guess.
But at the same time, you are talking about some heavier themes. Take that first single, Happy Man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a materialism slant to that, and I think I believe isolation is another theme, which is interestingly timed, because the more and more I talk to artists, especially that are putting out music in the past year, that sort of rears its head a lot. Isolation comes through a lot. Like, I know we're all weird bunches, historically anyway, but it seems to be a little bit more at this time.
I mean, isolation is the worst possible scenario. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's got to stick together. That's kind of where we come from.
But then to go on to the other side of that, I mean, and I don't know which one of you all, sort of threw the words down on Happy Man here, but, materialism being the other thing. There you are all on the West Coast, and I feel like it's a lesson we would have learned by now, but what was smacking you all in the face to kind of throw it down on the record?
I don't know. I think that song comes from there's a couple of different perspectives. I think there's also the whole notion of that, obviously male toxic masculinity is a big issue these days, and the whole idea of what it is to be a man and a good man, not necessarily in terms of, wealth, it's in terms of actually in terms of society, and making sure that you're being a good person, not because of how society teaches you to be a good person, but, doing it properly. And the whole materialism thing is difficult, because obviously America is sort of like the hotbed of capitalism, and it is capitalism kind of defined, and it's exciting to go and I think for us it was exciting to see if that was still kind of the case, and if the American dream was still a reality. But, even since we've been back on the tour in the US, I've definitely noticed a lot more poverty, a lot more homelessness, even on the West Coast. You go to San Francisco and places on the West Coast like Santa Cruz, and the problem's worse than ever. So it's sad, but I think coming over and doing a bit of writing and some work out here before going back to the UK really gave us even more perspective on that, and kind of showed us that, the world is still pretty broken, and that it's going to take a lot for us to fix it.
There are moments on this record musically that I feel kind of match what you're saying there too, because take another track with House in LA, it feels like musically you all really got to stretch out on that one, but the way it all melts away in the end, I think it's one of my favorite moments on the record.
Yeah, I think that song for us was a really defining moment. It was one of the first songs on the record that we finished that had that depth and that breadth of production, and we were like, whoa, that was something that we didn't necessarily think that we were capable of, and that's a really nice moment in music or anything creative, is when you create something that you kind of stand back and you go, well, did I do that? Was that me? And so that was a really fascinating experience. We really enjoyed that.
I want to bring up the videos too, because, there's choreography in the videos like last time, but I wonder, would you say there's a style thread that runs throughout? I mean, something that maybe separates these from the first album?
Yeah, I think on the second record with the choreography, we tried to keep it more coming from the same place, like keeping a lot of cast characters the same, trying to create a storyline that ran through the videos, because obviously there's more of a storyline that runs through the record this time. This album is definitely more about our emotions and our experiences. And so we sort of wanted to characterize those in a more consistent way throughout the making of the videos. And we used a choreographer for the same choreographer for all the videos rather than different choreographers. And so, yeah, there are definitely some thematic things that run through the whole plot line. And I think that's something that we definitely sought out to achieve.
Now, as for you, when it comes to choreography, do you know the lexicon? Is that in your wheelhouse, or do you have to give up a certain amount of creative trust when talking to a choreographer about that?
A bit of both. I mean, interestingly, my mum's a dance teacher, and so I danced when I was a kid. So I'm not an alien to it. But I mean, at the same time, you've got to trust your friends to do their job better than you think you're going to do it for them. And that's part of the collective mentality. We've got an amazingly talented group of people that we work with in all aspects of what we do, whether it's on stage or with the artwork or the videos. And so you just got to go, do your thing. And I think that's the great thing, is to watch your song come to life in a way that you couldn't possibly have conceived.
Well, some of my favorite videos out there right now. I just kind of get lost in them, kind of watching them every time. They're so impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. You also had a couple of songs recently on the with the FIFA games. How I don't know. Has that been important to your career? Do you think that's added to a level of success?
I think so. I think any exposure is good exposure. That's just one of the biggest selling game titles worldwide on a yearly basis. And so to have your music on there, I mean, we're massive soccer fans, huge. So we played a game with I've got season tickets to my local team in the UK. So that's it was a bit of a milestone in my head, really. But yeah, it's a huge exposure, and you just notice that we met some really cool guys outside on one of our shows in Brooklyn last year who had kind of found us through the game. They were like, yeah, we heard your song on FIFA, and then we got really into the band, and they were the kind of guys that I wouldn't have expected to be into my kind of music, and that was a really beautiful thing to show that there is a platform for people from all walks of life to listen to all different types of music and to get involved in it, because there is so much choice out there, and it was just kind of crazy that these guys kind of picked us out of the bag and followed us from there.
But those great moments that we have when the things you grew up worshiping to a point you're suddenly a part of in some degree. I mean, that's got to be one of those great moments, as you say.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, Tom, I really appreciate the conversation. Thanks again for the music and everything, and for an album like Forever, which you got to put that pause in, right? Forever. It's almost like a toast, I guess. A little bit, yeah. I think it just presents the word differently. There's a variety of different meanings for us for the title, but I think it adds more emphasis. Yeah, it's a very special word. Well, a couple of words for us, I guess, and it means a lot. And we're really grateful that especially in America, people have picked up the new album and really taken it under their wing and made it their own. And we've seen that across the board, playing live from coast to coast. So I'm just really grateful that the American people are really digging it right now. Absolutely. So before I get out, I obviously got to ask, where are you on the tattoo? I mean, what progress have we made in this 14 minutes? Well, it was a proper prison style pick and poke. So it was all the main action was done during the first couple of questions, actually. I can't wait to see it. If you want, I'll send. Well, I'll put it up on the Instagram, and you can go take a look. I mean, I have to now. It's not like I can't. I was even a part of it, just a half a little bit. So yeah, you were a part of it. Thank you for being with me during this journey. Absolutely. Thanks for including me on the journey too, Tom. It's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Thanks, man. Take care of yourself.
All right, take care. Bye.
All right, bye.
And again, my thanks, Tom McFarland. The brand new Jungle record is called Loving in Stereo. Thanks to you again for checking out this episode. Please do hit the subscribe button so you can keep up with the whole series, a brand new interview every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Acast, Podchaser, NPR, YouTube for the video versions, or anywhere you like to get your podcasts from. Subscribe to Kyle Meredith with. After that, head over to WFPK.org, where I do a show Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, an hour full of song premieres, music news, anniversary spins, bonus interviews, Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern at WFPK.org. Consequence has your music and film news. You can find me on the social media spots as well. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all three of them at Kyle Meredith. I do hope you like and follow along. That does it for another edition of Kyle Meredith. I'll see you next time.
Consequence Podcast Network.
Oh, that was new.
It's easy to hear your favorite artist on WFPK from wherever you are. Listen on your smart speaker, live stream from our website at WFPK.org, from Louisville Public Media.